I hope everybody is here and ready to go. Dawn is going to hop on and we are going to get started.
Hey,
Dawn.
everybody! It's camp day! Got my flower press, got my bird cards. I'm ready to camp, man. We gotta get this going.
We got the camp going on. The
my lantern. I'm ready for our owl walk later. Is everyone else coming?
Oh, I love your lantern. I want one of those. That's adorable.
Super fun. Yes, I love this day. So fun.
So fun. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Dawn is about to give you all the insight into what our products are. She is the architect of publications. All right, Dawn, take it away.
Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about how Brave Writer sees the writing process, how our products fit into that process, your role as a parent, very important in that process. And then I'm also going to weave in notes about how reading amazing literature and doing that alongside writing all together makes for a wonderful experience and insightful experience for your kids. So as they become writers, those two things weave together, and we love books around here. So we use lots of books in our curriculum. Okay, so let's jump in. That's a lot to cover. So Brave Writer approaches writing the way professional writers write. If you've ever read the acknowledgments in the back of a book, so they often sound like this, right? I'd like to thank myself for all the time and research and dedication that I put into this book. It took me a lot of time to read it to myself over and over again and make sure I expressed my ideas just the way I wanted. Is that how they read? I'm seeing some LOLs. I'm seeing some laughter. Yeah, no, that's not how acknowledgments read. When writers, published authors, they spend a lot of time on their own, an enormous amount of time on their own writing. But they also have this amazing team of people to support them. They do a ton of reading. They meet with experts. They do all kinds of things to help them along the way. And then they have all kinds of people that contribute. And so when you see those acknowledgments at the back of the book, you see them naming everybody from their editor to their family members and everybody in between. So you are the team for your child, and you get to rope in other support people to help you coach your child in writing. So you're here to learn the ins and outs of Brave Writer so that you can be a brave coach for your child as they become brave writers. So with this in mind, I want to take you on a quick walk through the writing process. So after a spark of inspiration and some simmering, I don't know if you were just listening to Melissa Wiley, but she said she practically wrote an entire book while she was out gardening. That's the simmering process. That's that rolling around of ideas in your brain so that when you get to the page, they can come tumbling out. So once writers have this inspiration, the first thing they're looking to do is just get those ideas onto a page. And I can guarantee you this looks really messy at first. When I wrote my book with my co-author, we were just dumping ideas onto the page so that we had something to work with. So at this point, the writer often has conversations with people in the field of study. They go back and they return to their work. They might get feedback from people who are trusted readers for their fictional work. And these people are really helpful for them to flesh out insights, to kind of tweak ideas that they had. And they may kind of go down new roads or decide to, they decide to change an entire character based on feedback they're getting from their readers and how they respond to that. So you're the person who can help connect your child with these people, and you can be this person for your child, this person who is a sounding board to their writing. So once the idea is on the page, that's when expansion and revision takes place. So this is a part of the editing process where you may, a writer ropes in an editor. So these are professional people who are paid to give writers feedback about their writing. Now, editors may not be exactly what you're thinking at this point. They're not there at this stage to correct punctuation. Editors are collaborators with writers. They're there to help them refine their ideas and their stories. So once again, this is where you can come in for your child, and you can be there to help your child refine and tweak their writing in a way that they want and they desire. So often we see editors acknowledged in the backs of books, in the acknowledgements, because writers highly value the work that they do. They're detached from the text. They don't have emotional attachments to what's being written, so they can have a really clear vision of how it reads to the reader and how it's expressed. And they can pick out some ambiguities, things that may beguile a reader. They can comment on what's working really well, and they can let writers know this hits the mark. This was really powerful. It's like a sign that says to writers, more of this. This was really good. And then they can also comment on things that spark questions in their mind, things that they weren't quite sure about. So if you've ever had this experience, have you ever thought you said something or thought you sent a text or an email, but then later you find out it only really happened in your mind? Has anyone ever had that experience? You didn't actually follow through on it, even though you thought it, and sometimes even thought that you had written it down. So writing can be like that sometimes. You're thinking about something really clearly in your mind, but it's not fully expressed on the page to the point where somebody else couldn't totally understand what you're thinking and what your writing wants to convey. So editors help writers as their companions to catch some of these types of inconsistencies and to help writers clarify what they want to say. So after that collaboration process takes place, and the writer feels like they've really refined their message, they've refined their writing, their story is clear, their characters are fleshed out the way that they want them to be, it's at that point that it's ready for the next stage, and that's copy edits. Now, this is the thing we often think of when we first think about editing, but really, it's the final stage. It's the mop-up after all the good stuff is down on the page. It's the last stage in the process. So it is that final product. When we pick up a book like Raising Critical Thinkers, it has been through all those stages. I was there with Julie as she went through all of the stages. I've been through all those stages with my book. And it is that final mop-up stage that we get to read. We as consumers that go to the bookstore and take a book off the shelf do not see all of the messiness that took place as the writing process unfolded. We get to see the polished work. And oftentimes we see that so much that we forget there's messiness involved in the beginning of the process. So when our kids give us some writing, we are expecting, or our expectations are very high up here in this published work realm. So this process, you have to keep in mind, is about a book in any subject. This is not just compartmentalizing language arts, that this happens over here in language arts in your English class, or however you're categorizing your subject areas. It happens across the curriculum. So across the spectrum of thoughts and ideas and academic research and all of the writing that you see out there in the world goes through this process to a varying degree. So I take the time to share this with you because I want you to keep it in mind as I discuss how Brave Writer teaches the writing process and how we teach writing. So let's start with the first step. And that's what I said, getting ideas on the page. So after all that simmering and knocking around of ideas and thinking about it, you got to get those words on the page, however messy it looks. So even with all the supports in place for writers, even pros can suffer from writer's block. So that's really the inability or the reluctance to get thoughts on the page. Maybe they can't find the right words to express what they want to say. Maybe it feels too risky to actually put what they think about a topic onto the page. So our kids can suffer a form of writer's block too, but we often see it expressed as reluctance or resistance to writing. So they may say that they can't before they even try. They might write a few lines when you know they have more to say on the topic. They've just been rattling your ear off about it, and then they sit down to write and just a few lines come out. They might hide under the table and crinkle up their paper. They could possibly throw pencils across the room. This happened at my house. I'm speaking from experience. Sometimes reluctance is shown in all kinds of ways. So the question is, how do kids become reluctant writers? They babble their way to proficiency in speech, and goodness, once they start talking, they just go for it, right? So here's what typically happens when a teacher or a parent sees the writing efforts of a child. The red pen comes out. Either literally, the red pen comes out and starts marking up their writing, or figuratively, the feeling of being scrutinized with a red pen starts to happen. So what happens there is that the copy editor we talked about, that person that's supposed to be last in line, they jump the line. They jump ahead of all of the messy work, all the collaboration, all of the returning to the work and tweaking it and refining it. And that copy editor jumps ahead and is trying to do that final mop-up of a comma here, of a capital letter here, spelling error here, before we go through the process. So the stuff that's not working really leaps off the page to adults, especially because we're used to reading really refined and edited writing. So remember that you have to kind of set aside those expectations that are set by these published works and know that there's messiness that comes first. So the stuff that we tend to notice are the spelling errors, the out of place punctuation or zero punctuation in an entire paragraph, poor grammar, stray sentence fragments, messy handwriting that you can barely read, paltry details. It was cool when they were just going on and on and on about it. So the point is, we tend to notice the things that are not working. And when these errors are pointed out to children over and over and over again, the child becomes alienated from trying to write because they feel pressure to keep track of all these mechanics on top of their fleeting thoughts that they're trying to get down onto the page. So they shift and they focus more on the mechanics of writing, and they get less in touch. They feel less in touch with what they really want to communicate. So they become alienated from their affinities, the things that they're really excited to write about, and their thoughts and ideas that they want to express. So it's really difficult to say, okay, yeah, I want to write about Wayne Gretzky and why he is the best player to ever hit the ice. If when the entire time you're writing, you're worried about spelling his name correctly, or if you put the punctuation in the correct spot, or if you need to capitalize this letter. Every time I write Wayne Gretzky's name, I need to make sure I capitalize it. I need to do all of these things. And all of a sudden, the child's more focused on these bits and pieces of the writing and not the big picture that they want to convey about how much they adore Wayne Gretzky. So some of the reluctance that we see on display is a result of your child really trying to manage their thoughts against their really still growing writing mechanics. So to sum it up, they can think and talk better than they can handwrite, spell, and punctuate. So because of that, when you ask them to commit thoughts to the page or the screen, some of the brain energy is really being siphoned off trying to remember spelling, grammar, punctuation, and slowing down enough to make sure their handwriting is really neat. So if they're going to get anything onto the page, they basically have two choices. So the first choice is that they can dumb down their writing to match their writing skills. Tell me, have you ever been writing something and you can't remember how to spell the word you want to use, so you select another word that you know how to spell? So for us, it might be, bigger words, tricky words, words that we don't use all the time. But for kids, those are fairly common words, and they might even be words that they've been exposed to, but can't remember to spell at the time. So what they're doing is they're going to shift their writing to dumb it down. And instead of saying, something that is that they have the vocabulary to express, they're going to dumb that down to what they can spell, what they can write. The other option that they have is that they can ignore mechanics. They can just chase down those speedy thoughts, get them on the page as fast as they can, however they come out, and just throw, caution to the wind when it comes to legibility and spelling and where the punctuation goes. This is when you get those kids that, zero punctuation. It's just from start to go 100%, they're getting those thoughts down. So have you ever been in that situation where you need to scribble something down really quick before you forget and your handwriting just flies right out the door? It is not neat handwriting. It is just, what my mom used to call chicken scratch, because those fleeting thoughts, you're going to lose them. So you want to get them down really quick. And that's not the time to, focus on your handwriting being perfect. So when we see reluctance or resistance, we're really witnessing this crash between these sophisticated thoughts that your child is having versus what they can actually commit to the page with accuracy and neatness. But I fully recommend getting yourself into that position where you are, really chasing down those thoughts, because you're going to connect with how your kids feel. All right. So how do we shift this internal dilemma for our kids? What can we do instead of notice the stuff that's not working? We can notice the good stuff, of course. We can be just like those good editors who tell them, this is good. Yes, do more of this. This totally hits the spot. When I read this, it was super clear. I could envision this character in my mind. I understood what you were talking about. I love the way that you use this idiom. And, it was really funny. And I saw this flash of insight that you had. And it was so neat to see behind the curtain and to know that you knew that about tanks or whatever the topic is. Their clever vocabulary that they use, whether it's spelled correctly or not, and a mastery of the material that they've been covering. Some parents are like, wait, did you just copy this out of the book? I didn't know you could write this way. These are things that we can notice instead of the other things, instead of those things that need to come later in the mop-up stage. So good writers do these things, and our kids do these things, but we need to be the ones to not let the messy handwriting, the spelling, the punctuation, the poor grammar drown out those really positive things that are really showing the power of their voice and their writing voice coming forward. So my mission with this talk is to help you start to see how to teach so that the mechanics grow without undervaluing the content that your kids have inside of them. So we want our kids to experience themselves as powerful writers before they have a mastery of spelling, punctuation, handwriting, grammar. So for perspective, when was the last time you finished a book and you just thought, wow, That was great. What a masterful use of commas this author had. I'm blown away by their comma usage. And you text a friend, you share a book with your friend, you are going to love this book. Her comma usage is out of this world. No, we never do that. We never do that to our friends. We text our friends, we message our friends, we tag our friends about books that are meaningful to us. The content is what causes us to have that reaction. It causes us to share things with other people. So it's not the master of the comma. It is the master of the content. And that's what we want to draw out in our kids. So the mechanics are secondary. They're just a tool. They are a tool to help the writer help the reader along in the reading process. They help the writer nurture the reader in the reading experience. And that way we can see them as a tool to help the writer communicate, but they're not the most important aspect of writing. Okay, so we're faced with this great divide. We've got mechanics or power of writing. And as we saw with the professional writer, they're both really important. So when we make the mechanics the first thing we notice, we lose the power in writing. So we're going to flip that script. Brave Writer totally flips the script. We prioritize that original content, that content that gets you and makes you want to share it, to help kids write with rich detail and lively works and things that you want to read again and again. So we want you to be that first editor first, that collaborator with your kids. And we grow the mechanics separately using someone else's writing over here so that your kids and your teens can eventually learn from the prose, learn from those highly edited works, and then eventually move into being their own copy editor to a point. Even professional writers have those extra sets of eyes out there to help them see their work. Okay, so how do we do that? I am going to screen share and show you the writing triangle that we use. So the writing triangle really is a way to help you visualize how the pieces of Brave Writer fit together and what your role is in the process. So what we have here is original thought at the bottom. I'm going to kind of fill in parts of the triangle. I'll talk about it and then we'll continue on talking. So original thought is at the bottom of the triangle. This is, this lively mind life that your child has already inside them. Then on the other side is mechanics and literature. So this is where your kids are learning. This is the punctuation, grammar, spelling, literary devices, all that good stuff. And then at the top is proficiency in writing. So let's see how it works. At the ages of 5, 6, 7, 8, most kids are just learning to read or write. So 5-year-olds are fairly fluent in their primary language, but their spoken skills do not match their writing at all. So during this time of learning to kind of handle a pencil for the first time, their imaginations are absolutely flourishing. It's like the Renaissance era over an original thought on that side of the triangle. But then their handwriting, their spelling, their grasp of punctuation and grammar, it's like still in the Middle Ages over there on the other side of the triangle. So during this time, at the beginning of the writing life, mechanics and original thought are as far apart as they're ever going to be. So original thinking is really clever and funny and interesting at age 5. Mechanics are really sparse and inaccurate and poorly executed. They're still mixing up their B's and their D's. They can't remember how to spell words that they maybe, knew how to spell last week. So when thinking about mechanics, think about the early attempts at speech. So Baba for bottle, Nana for banana, or shortening somebody's name to give them a nickname because they can't say their full name. Writing mechanics are like this. So early attempts are not accurate. They invent spelling words. They put commas in the most bizarre places because they really are attempting to use commas, just like a baby is, or a child is trying to say banana when they say nana. So during this early writing life, it's really important to separate these two. And as a child gains skills, they write down their own thoughts. But you can kind of bridge that gap by capturing their stories and their thoughts for them before they can write it on their own. So what you're doing when you do that is you demonstrate a value, that you value those thoughts, and you're building a foundation for a strong writing voice. So original thought, think about all of these things bubbling up in your kids. Their stories, their animated retellings, even insights about controversial topics. I see those of you who put in the chat that you had tweens and teens. Those are super great fodder for writing. All of those controversial topics that they're testing out with you, which is an awesome place to do it. So in the beginning, down here at the bottom of the triangle, we encourage parents to capture thoughts by transcribing for kids who don't have the proficiency yet. That's the jot it down stage. We'll talk about that. And so how this looks is that your child starts telling you a story. They come in from outside, they saw a dragonfly, it caught a mosquito, it was the most amazing thing ever, and the dragonfly was zipping around, and they have all of these great words that they're using to describe the experience. And you grab, a piece of paper, the back of an envelope, and you're writing this down. And, just tell them, this is amazing story you're writing. I just want to capture this. And then when you're FaceTiming or Zooming with grandma, you say, hey, let me read you this amazing story that Max wrote today. And you read it to grandma. And you put it in the library basket, and you read it with all the other stories that you've checked out from the library. And you're validating your child as a writer before they can transcribe for themselves. It's such an empowering experience. Kids absolutely love it for the most part. There are some that are resistant, and we have ideas for that. But really, it's this idea of showing them that their thoughts and ideas are valuable. So the key here is that you're an integral part of this writing experience with your child through this whole process, from the jot it down stage all the way to your teen writer that gains writing proficiency. So in the original thought category, we have Growing Brave Writers, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and Help for High School. Those are the products that we have to support original thought, getting from those fresh ideas onto the page and taking it all the way through the writing process. And I will talk a little bit more about our products after I get through the writing triangle. So mechanics comes next. And when it's time, Brave Writer uses living literature, a phrase given to us by educator Charlotte Mason, to teach writing mechanics. So this is where we have these rich, beautiful, meaningful stories written by other writers, taken through the writing process from, that messy idea phase all the way to the book on your shelf. And we bring writing mechanics to life through those novels. So we love books. We love a variety of authors and genre, including historical fiction. So this is a really great opportunity to pull in resources from across the curriculum into the writing program as we teach writing mechanics. So we select a passage for copywork and dictation, which we train anybody who's not familiar with those practices to do. And we explore that passage to figure out what makes it interesting. What makes this writing worth reading? What makes it tick? And so we have products that teach you to use these tools and support you as you teach your child grammar, punctuation, spelling, literary devices, and at the older levels, literary analysis in an engaging way that's going to inspire epiphanies and give your kids these aha moments that they're going to remember and they're going to apply to their own writing. So instead of drab workbooks that are completely disassociated of meaning and quickly forgotten, you're going to be engaging with your children in really insightful and really delightful conversations about punctuation and grammar or literary devices like similes and idioms. And if you are shocked to hear me say that you can have insightful, fun conversations about periods, then please, let us help you, because it's a true thing. You can have these wonderfully insightful conversations with your kids and play with writing in a way that makes periods interesting. So that's really what we foster in your homeschool, is these kinds of conversations and engagement that will extend well beyond writing into other aspects of your homeschool life. So we have mechanics and literature programs for kids all the way from age 5 to 18, which I will share with you in a little bit. So the basis of the triangle, children are between 5 and 8. Then over time, they're going to bring in mechanics and writing and original thought together until they reach about 18 years old to be at that writing proficiency stage. They're ready for college. They're ready for the workforce. So did you hear what I said? So we're talking about 5 to 8-year-olds at the bottom, 18-year-olds at the top. So that's over 10 years that you have to develop a writer. So there's no need to panic and feel like, if your 9-year-old isn't spelling accurately or not writing full paragraphs or essays, that somehow they're not going to succeed in writing. There's a lot of time there, and we teach you practices that will continue to serve them as writers and for the rest of their writing life. So how do we get here? How do we get this original thought and these mechanics to come together for writing proficiency? Well, we've got 2 things that are going to help. One is you, parent involvement. So you make up in the beginning, you make up that distance between original thought and mechanics in this decreasing role over time. So in the early years, like I said, you're going to be the one transcribing, you're going to be jotting their thoughts down and taking care of mechanics so that they can focus on those thoughts and ideas. Then as your child gets older, you're going to partner in new ways. You're going to, maybe your child writes one sentence and then you write one sentence, writing down their thoughts. You might jot down words and then they copy them. You might be in a conversation with your teen and start writing things on a note card, just random thoughts and ideas, and then they take those note cards and they rearrange them and put them together and use them to build an essay. You may be in the teen stage where your teen is sending you a Google Doc and you are making comments in the Google Doc, just like that collaborative editor, pointing out the good stuff, making little notes about things that you weren't sure about, and offer them ideas for, like, you maybe think about expanding here. And we have all kinds of training for you on how to do that. So your role is going to change throughout the writing life of your child. But over time, they're going to be able to handwrite and type their own thoughts with writing proficiency. So on the other side of the triangle, what we have is writing projects. So projects are essentially assignments, activities that are developmentally scaled to meet your child where they are in the writing process. So they're bringing together prompts and ideas to spark original thoughts with writing mechanics to help your child grow. So you're taking the writing through the writing process and then using those mechanics, mop-ups, tools that we give you. So your role in these types of writing projects will change over time to meet the needs of your child as they gain proficiency. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute. And I see questions popping up in the question box. So I'm going to run through this last part, and hopefully there will be some time to answer those. And I'm sure that Julie, I haven't been watching the chat, but I'm sure that questions are being answered there. So this writing triangle really demonstrates how Brave Writer divides up, how we divide up our products. And it's exactly why a language-rich home filled with reading and what we call big, juicy conversations and healthy debates and engagement with media and critical thinking and interesting projects that really pull from the interests of your child, because our writing projects are all so adaptable to tap into the interests, whatever your child's interests are at the time. So we really see this as the key to homeschooling and your child's growth as a writer, but not just a writer, as a scientist, as a historian, as a mathematician, and on and on and on. because writing is integral to all of those things. So how do we do it? Let's see. All right. So I talked about original thought, and I said we have Growing Brave Writers and Help for High School. So Help for High School is a self-directed academic writing program for teens. They can go through it on their own if they feel pretty confident about their writing skills. We have some parents that walk through it step by step alongside their teens, and that's perfectly great too. So this product really teaches rhetorical thinking skills, and it covers all the essay formats that are most commonly assigned in either high school or college. Then we have our brand new product, which I'm so excited about. I have the cover here, Growing Brave Writers. Growing Brave Writers really is the spine of the Brave Writer program. So when I say it's a product that keeps on giving, I am not kidding. This book will outlive your homeschool years. Your child will be using the processes that you learn in Growing Brave Writers for the rest of their writing lives. And if you have more than one child, you'll be able to come back to it and revisit it again and again and again without having to buy it over and over again, because it's not consumable. Everything in there you can use again and again, and those practices will become a part of your homeschool life across the curriculum. So purchase it once, use it for 20 years or more, use it with your grandkids. It is truly timeless. You can't go wrong with what you're going to learn inside Growing Brave Writers. So it really takes you through the writing process that I laid out in the beginning and beyond. And it gives you all kinds of tools that you can use to take your child through all the stages, from jot it down through competency in writing, developing and retaining their unique writing voice. So this book really empowers you, even if you don't feel confident in your own writing skills. We hear from parents all the time that they don't feel confident as writers. And the key here is that if you're not confident as a writer, then you don't want to take your child through the same practices and principles that you grew up with. There's a reason why you don't feel confident. And so it's this flipping of the script, this changing of the way that you do things is a gift that you can give to your child. So they really, the practices in Growing Brave Writers will help you become that confident collaborator and coach that your kid deserves to become a really comfortable writer. So whether they go into journalism or geology or mechanical engineering or mathematics, I mean, really, they're going to need strong writing skills, whether it's for work or even just for pleasure. And those really begin with nurturing the writer that's already inside them before they can even put words on a page. So the key here is you. We're going to train you to help your child get that positive start in writing. And once they develop this congenial relationship with writing, all the other subjects will fall into place when it comes to writing assignments. And they get writing assignments in all of their subject areas. So, write a history paper, write a science report, write a blog post about a current event, write a letter to the editor or an essay arguing your perspective, express yourself in a poem, write a dissertation. I mean, you never know where it's going to lead, but the practices in Growing Brave Writers really open the door to all those possibilities once you teach them to your child, and they will be coming back to them again and again and again. And we offer all kinds of handholds along the way. So Growing Brave Writers itself is laid out in a super user-friendly way with coaching guide material, activity pages that are super clear, and you will feel so confident. We had a mom just write us saying that she feels empowered and confident after reading through Growing Brave Writers. So it's delightful. It's wonderful. You're going to enjoy using it. But we also have products to support you in mechanics and literature, products to support you for projects, and our community, which Julie just gave a webinar about for Brave Learner Home. I adore it there, and you get tons of support there. So just like Growing Brave Writers, these are products that you can use again and again and again. And we have this absolutely wonderful page set up for you called Getting Started. And I want to do a quick screen share again so that you can see it. we have the overview of our three pieces of a complete writing program: original thought, mechanics and literature, and writing projects. And so we have created bundles that cover each of these areas for all your different age children. So if you go to bravewriter.com stages, you will see each of these areas covered in a page that looks like this. And if you hover over the ages, kind of get you started as a place to start, you can click on the button for whatever age you want to look at. And that takes you to a page where you can explore how each of these bundles, the beginning writers bundle, emerging writers, and so on, pulls together the three components you need for a complete writing program. If you purchase a bundle, you get into Brave Learner Home, which is the place where we support you in using your products and in your homeschool life and in awesome adulting. There's just so much going on in Brave Learner Home that is just tremendously helpful to you, not only as a Brave Writer parent, but as a parent in general and a human as a whole. So that is what I have to share. I would just encourage you to really think about, as a researching parent who is completely invested in your kids because you are here doing your professional development, learning about Brave Writer, researching other curriculums.
If you do need more help, go to help at, I'm going to put in here, at bravewriter.com and send an email, and we will help you with your specific family situation. But start by going to the stages pages that I linked, because you may find the answer just by reading.
They are a wealth of information. You will have everything you need there.
That's
but
right. Okay.
Contact us if you don't. Bye.